It is tip-off. Good morning. I'm David Locke. We'll run through what Quinn Snyder said about how the Jazz will play with DJ and PK. The essence of basketball, the holy grail, one comment made by two men at the exact same time. It's all you ever need to know. We'll touch on that, plus the latest in the draft news. It is tip-off. Pow. How are you? Namaste. I hope everyone is well, enjoying it, and our lives have settled down a little bit. We don't worry about the coaching search anymore. We simply put the focus on who is going to be our draft choice. And we've got ourselves another 18 days. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to try to get some draft videos done. I have just not been doing a very good job of getting those done. Real life, but nothing other than being a husband and a parent. Not like I've been doing other work. Getting in the way, I will try to see what I can do to get some stuff out as we get closer. The other night was one of the greatest moments of TV that I've ever seen involving sports broadcasting, and then I actually thought it got kind of lost. I'd be curious to go back. But we came out of a commercial break the other night with the coaches talking. Both Eric Spoelstra and Greg Popovich use the exact same phrase. Don't let it stick. Don't let it stick. Move the basketball. Continually move the basketball. And Miami and San Antonio play to some extent quite differently. And yet here was the message in the huddle to both teams in the middle of a major game 2 of an NBA final was the exact same. Pop said it, then Spoelstra said, don't let it stick. Maybe slight variations on how each of them said it, but that was the essence. That's it, guys. And here's the problem that Quinn Snyder has. Our guys all stick. Maybe not Gordon, but everybody else sticks. Trey is a dribbler. Alec, can't tell you how many times we catches and dribbles once. Before he knows what he's going to do. I can't tell you how many times I saw the coaches talk to him about this. To the point of what we've heard from Quinn about habits and things of that sort, maybe this is where the coaching will be different. It won't be, hey, you can't do that. Hey, you got to stop doing that. It'll be, if you don't, you're gone. I don't know how the coaching is different on something like that. But that is something that I watched the coaches time and time again talk to Alec Burks about. Ennis Cantor, learn from Al Jefferson. He's got the stickiest hands alive. Favors actually is probably the second best ball mover on the roster. Marvin, Richard, that's why they played, because they actually moved the ball. We have got to find ball movers, or we have to convert our current players into ball movers. It's teachable. It's my concern when I watch Jabari, though. Never once did I see him catch a ball and move it. It's not what he's asked to do yet, I guess. And he'll score, but you got to have more than guys who can just score. You've got to have guys that are ball movers. You look through the Miami Heat, every single one of them is a ball mover. You look through the San Antonio Spurs, every single one of them is a ball mover. You got to have passing. You got to have good passing. That's why I love Aaron Gordon when we start talking about this draft. He's an elite level passer for the position he plays. I want passers. Hey, you got to shoot. You got to be, but you got to move. Actually, I had a great day yesterday talking to people in the league. My daughter is doing golf camp and basketball camp right now because their father's crazy. Actually, this was so cute. I said to her, hon, I'm always like, you don't need to do. Daddy, no one's making me do it. I get to do both these things. I was like, okay, you're fine, and you're 9, and you're crazy. And so at basketball camp, I just actually sat outside and talked to people around the league for 3 hours and went to Technoglass. Thank you to the guys. My rear view mirror fell off my windshield. It was dangling like fuzzy dice, but I couldn't really see out of it. So it was some interesting conversation. One, we were talking about Aaron Gordon. We were talking about Michael Carter. The guy I was talking to is a scout who loves shooters. Loves them. That's his deal. his point is everyone's got to love shooters. So I'm like, okay, you like him more than most. He loves the kid out of Michigan. Stauskas, I don't know how to pronounce it. He loves him. Thinks he's every bit as good as any player that's not drafted in the top 3 of this draft. Loves him. He loves shooters. I have a tendency to not love shooters. I have a tendency to love Michael Carter Williams in a draft process because he rotates correctly. He sees the floor correctly. He gets to the right spot correctly. He's in the position of rebound. He anticipates the game. He moves the ball. And I love those things. I'm in love with Aaron Gordon right now very much for that reason. He moves the ball. He's got an incredible handle. He can't shoot. The scout made an incredible point to me. He said to me, the fact is, those guys, to their credit, but understand why, have learned that since they can't shoot, the way they're going to stay on the floor is to do exactly that. If they don't do that, when Aaron Gordon and Michael Carter Williams can't shoot, if they don't become an elite passer, elite handler, they don't see the floor before it happens. They don't rotate defense. They don't play. Because, it's funny. I tell my daughter this, who's 9, who loves to play athletics. Don't worry, I don't think I'm not one of these. I'm going to make a Division I athlete parents. I'm not. I know my own skills. I know my wife's 4'11". I know our chances. But she's always wants to learn. And I basically said to her the other day, in basketball, if you don't shoot, for all we talk about, play hard, rebound, defend, if you don't shoot, you don't play. If you can't put the ball in the hole at any age, you probably don't play. And in baseball, if you don't hit, you don't play. We can talk about fielding and all. If you got to hit, well, you don't play the role she probably wants to play, frankly. So, to some extent, the scout's right. Hey, if you can't shoot, well, you can't play. So you better become really, really good at the other stuff. I thought it was a perspective, at least I'm sharing with you, because I hadn't had it prior on this. Let's go to Quinn Snyder. Yesterday's interview with DJ and PK was great. Really good. I thought you learned an awful lot about Quinn. If you haven't heard it at 1280 The Zone, it's really good. Go back and listen to it. Some interesting things he talked about. One is the biggest influence was Coach K, Pop, and RC are his biggest influences. What he said makes the Spurs special is their habits and their emphasis. He was talking about defensively. He says you got to make it an emphasis and you got to make it a habit. I thought this was interesting on defense. He also said we probably have got to start keeping it simple. And that goes to what Steve Clifford did in Charlotte this year, where he said, I only put in the base defense. I only put in the base essence, small stuff of what we do. Because, otherwise it gets a little too complicated for the guys. And we got to, and I think then Quinn said, then we'll try to make some adjustments because I'm good at that. This is going to be Quinn's challenge. And that is, Quinn is a fiddler. You can just see it. He's got a brain that's going a million miles an hour. He's really bright. And so he's a fiddler. And so he's going to want to change and move and alter and adjust here. And can he stay based on the foundation principles of what they're doing defensively? Too often coaches make an adjustment, then they make an adjustment off the adjustment, they make an adjustment off the adjustment, they make an adjustment off the adjustment. The other thing coaches do too often is they, here's the core of what we're doing. This is what we do. This is how we play the pick and roll. This is how we do. Hey, wait a second. This guy, we're going to do this. Well, then that's not the core of what you do. But on this guy, we're going to do it this way. And suddenly you're no longer doing it in the way, the core of what you're doing as a principle, because you're adjusting and fiddling so often. I think that's going to be something that's hard for Quinn's personality, is to stick in. And that's where his assistants are probably going to have to keep him corralled into the box, because I think Quinn's going to want to go out of the box. And Quinn, with his European influence, which he said at the press conference, is that you have so much time to adjust, prepare for every game, and come up with schemes and game plan to every game. I think he's going to want to do that. And with a young team, that's going to be very, very difficult. Offensively, he said we're going to run more pick and roll than the Spurs do. I'd have to look at some of my notes on where the Spurs are in ball screens a game and some things of that sort. But they Um, you know, they set some. If you're running more ball, the Mavericks ran the most at 70 ball screens a game. I'm going to guess that we're going to suddenly move upwards of 65, 70 ball screens a game. And what's going to be interesting about that for Favors and Cantor is they're going to have to really learn how to do that. I'm not sure that I think that either of those guys are very good yet at doing exactly that. I don't think either of those guys yet are particularly good at making opening themselves up to become available for the ball. They need huge work actually in that regard. They're not as good as they need to be in understanding how to use their body, become available on the pick and roll. I think if we looked over, somebody probably with synergy can go look at some of these notes for me. But the bigger issue is probably how rarely our role guys actually got the ball last year. More than anything else, that I bet you is jumps out is how rarely our role guys got the basketball. Um, and how much that they now are going to have to make themselves available to get those in a way that I just don't think they've done before. So that'll be a big transition for those players. That's where I think it's going to be really good for Gordon Hayward. He wants to pass off that pick and roll. He wants to move the ball. That's his instinct. It's going to be good for Alec Burks because the floor is going to be open and he's going to be able to drive and get places with more open. Uh, I'll try for tomorrow or the next day to go grab some of Atlanta's offense. I think that's what we're talking about, running, and I'll try to see if I can find some of that. Um, you know, he mentioned it specifically, a screen and roll to the rim, and they got to find a way to do it well. So I thought that was very interesting. Great interview. A few interesting notes on the draft. Exum right now is the mystery candidate. That's storyline's going to change. Is not going to change. He's working out for the second, third, and fourth picks. Has not said he'll work out for the fifth pick. In fact, has kind of said he won't. It's interesting. Is he not working out first because they're trying to keep him in 2, 3, 4, and they don't want to concede he might go 5? Or is he not working out for us because Boston and LA are sitting behind us in big markets and he wants to go there instead of Utah? Ryan Russillo, who's a very good NBA mind, tweeted out, I talked to a scout last night about Exum who said that he's got Skishvili written all over it. Skishvili was the Denver pick who busted, long, lanky European kid we hadn't seen much of, and he busted. The other one that's getting interesting is Doug McDermott. Every statistical indicator on McDermott is he's going to bust. 4-year college player, older, frankly white. The bust level is enormous. It's going to be interesting to see if he can overcome that. Final thing today, I don't know what I thought this. I talked to a coach in the league for a long time last night. I thought this was interesting. We were talking about the season, and he said that what he thought was interesting and was how the mid-level head coaches in the NBA had such a good year. Okay, so there were 13 brand new coaches last year. And 2 of the coaches that had the best year were Terry Stotts and Dwayne Casey. And his point was that they went from inexperienced to experienced in 1 year with the massive amount of turnover that we had in the NBA last season of coaches. And they won games because of the fact that they were more experienced than the coaches they were going up against. He said, hey, everyone's talking about what a good year those coaches had. His point was, by definition, they kind of had to. There were so many new coaches that Steve Clifford, Mike Budenholzer, somebody had to have good years. Hornacek clearly had a good year, but somebody kind of had to, right? His point was when you had that many new coaches last year, Kidd in Brooklyn, Stevens in Boston, Brown in Philadelphia. Do I need to run through this, or do you guys already know, all of them? That you ended up, therefore, having teams like Toronto and Portland having six. Now, the numbers don't back up his theory entirely because Toronto in games decided by three or less was 3-8. That would then mean that, that I'm implying with that, I've made a quantum leap here that where this coaching advantage would show up would be close games. But and Portland was, I think, 8-9 in close games. I don't know if that's actually true that coaching shows up more in a 3-point game than something else. Seemingly everything does in a 3-point game. Maybe it shows up other ways. I don't know. Philadelphia, I think, had a good record in games decided by three or less because, frankly, they played 50 of their 82 games. They lost. They were blown out by 10 or more. I think they lost 46 games by double digits this year. Well, if they're going to win, the only way they're going to win is a close game. Frankly, maybe winning by 10 or more is a sign that you're really good. Frank Layden used to really preach that the margin of victory at the end of the night was very important. To start losing by 5 instead of losing by 9 or 13 was a huge step. There's an argument to this, by the way. If you looked at it last year, the teams that won by 10 or more, San Antonio won 35 games by 10 or more. Oklahoma City won 33 by 10 or more in the West, and Indiana and Miami both won by 10 or more by 29. So, or 10 or more points 29 times. So there is a real argument that says your ability to blow somebody out is really telling, and how often you get blown out tells you a lot about your team. We got blown out the second most amount of any team in the NBA last year. We lost 39 games by 10 or more. Philadelphia was, as I said, I think at 46 or 50 or somewhere in that range. So I don't know. That was just another perspective, just sharing. I hold these conversations. I try not to break these people's confidence, but I try to share with you what I think is interesting around the league. All right, I'll try to do it in Atlanta. I'll do some. I want to do Marcus Smart. I want to do Noah Vonleh. I want to do Aaron Gordon. And then I also want to try to find a short way to do this Atlanta thing for you. So I'll try to find a way to do some of those for you. I may have to download a video editor onto my other computer so that I can do some at basketball game today. All right. Thank you. Hope you're great. Have a fabulous day.